We only have two enemies in Europe at the moment, and this is Sweden and Ireland. The Swedes are always very hostile. We have elections soon, so maybe things will change. Look, the Swedes have this fantasy that they are the people who will tell everybody who's right and who's wrong.
Never heard that.
My revenge on Sweden is Malmo. You know, this is a place where people can't live anymore, and it's a very major problem, and they really deserve it. Of the president, our situation in the American society is very strong. Mm-hmm. The fact that in Europe we have a major problem with the European Union doesn't mean that we don't have very good relations, bilaterally speaking, with most European countries. Germany and Israel Germany is friendly. It's sometimes misguided, but very, very friendly. We have at least 8, 9 nations who are very friendly to Israel. Most European nations are fair-minded, even if critical. We only have two enemies in Europe at the moment, and this is Sweden and Ireland.
Because they recognize Palestine?
No. This is just a manifestation. The Swedes are always very hostile. We have elections soon, so maybe things will change in Sweden. But the Swedes and the Irish are always very hostile.
But how? What do you mean?
Look, the Swedes have this fantasy that they are the people who will tell everybody who's right and who's wrong, and we look at them and say, who the hell are you? Or actually, we use stronger language than this, okay, to ourselves. Okay? They're being ridiculous, and they have these perceptions that is okay. I
never heard that.
My revenge on Sweden is Malmo. You know, this is a place where people can't live anymore, and it's a very major problem, and they really deserve it.
Because of the refugees?
Because of a population that is undermining the Swedish way of life in a way that most Swedes have a very serious problem with. And they're undermining it not to improve it, to put it mildly. But basically our relationship with most European countries is bilaterally very good. The understanding that Israel is a very solid, strong state is something that the Europeans understand. Trying to push Israel around is a bit ridiculous when they try to do it. Now, can they harm us? Yes. You know, I used the term in a lecture about Europe. I said, we have a problem, but not a dilemma. We have a problem because the Europeans feel that when we disregard them, and we do, they need to punish us, and they do, and they punish us, and it hurts. But we don't have a dilemma because listening to them is not an option. If we would have listened to the Europeans, Israel would not have existed. Let me put it this way. If we would have listened to the Europeans, Saddam Hussein would have nuclear weapons, Assad would have nuclear weapons, and the suicide bombers would control Tel Aviv. Because what we did to stop it, the Europeans were against. So you can't take them seriously. We had one exception, from Germany, by the way, Joschka Fischer. And I would never have expected it in 1968, but it happened in the beginning of this millennium. He would come to Ariel Sharon and say to him, you know, you were provoked by a terrorist action. You want to take this action. I suggest this action. Let me try for 2 weeks, and if I don't succeed, I will join you. So Arik Sharon gave him 2 weeks. He did not succeed. He joined us. Very good. Okay? And this is a way that the Europeans, if they would have been smart, would have treated us. Now, for instance, let's take the business of the settlements. If the Europeans would have said, look, the 6% of settlements that are in the settlement blocks where 80% of the Israelis live, we will say that we don't recognize it, we will say that it's against international law, blah, 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 but we will not take it, we will not push it too hard. But don't establish settlements in the heartland of Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, so that it will not preclude the possibility of withdrawal. And this is the real problem. The real problem are not the 6%, because Olmert even offered the Palestinians to compensate for the 6% by giving them territories inside Israel for the 6%. Okay? So they will get 100% of what they don't deserve. Okay? They will get 100% of what Jordan lost. So if the Europeans would say, yes, we don't recognize also the other settlements, and we don't recognize Jerusalem, but the most important thing is, don't settle in the heartland, and this is where we will really criticize you openly and aggressively, it would have been smarter, because you would have considered the European approach. But if they tell you, you're not allowed to build in Jerusalem, okay, not in Arab neighborhoods, but in in areas that were beyond the green line, then you don't take them seriously at all, because you say there is no way of satisfying them. So even to be smart is something that the Europeans have not learned, because they have a principle. And
Or values.
it has nothing whatsoever to do with values. It has nothing whatsoever to do with values. But if you want to be disregarded, be disregarded. Okay? Again, the question is, do you want perfection or do you want something good? And the perfect is the enemy of the good. And this is true about everything in life, but also here. The Europeans don't want something good. They want to feel good about themselves.
Gemeint.
Gut gemeint. Okay? Which is always ridiculous. But from an Israeli point of view, I think things are much better than before. Our international standing today is much stronger than it was, say, a decade ago. Excellent relations with India, very good relations all over the world. The major problems that we have is with the EU and European public opinion. Europe is losing its position in the world anyhow. Asia is rising. Europe is committing demographic suicide. Europe is becoming less significant. You can't work with Europe because Europe doesn't even work with the United States. Okay? They're waiting for another Obama. Even from the Democratic side, another Obama is not coming. Okay? Because the Democrats understand that what brought them Trump is, to some extent, Obama. And those Democrats who really want to come back to power will not go with the radicals. And if they go with the radicals, the Trump people and his likes will continue to be in power in the United States.